Boom. WNBA trade deadline season is in full effect. We've got a blockbuster on our hands thanks to the Minnesota Lynx and the Dallas Wings, and we're breaking down every piece of it. Locked On Women's Basketball Lynx Report on this Minnesota Monday starts right now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday and welcome everyone to this Lynx Report episode of Locked On Women's Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks as always for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen of the day. Special shout out to our everydayers who never miss an episode. Locked On Women's Basketball, here for you 6 days a week. It's Minnesota Monday. My name is Terry Horstman, and I've been the Minnesota Lynx beat writer at the Next since 2023. Very happy to be with you here today and every Monday through the rest of the W season. Your Sunday scaries are now a thing of the past because you got Minnesota Mondays to look forward to now. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. I'm thrilled to be joined today by my colleague, Grant Afseth, who covers all things Dallas Wings at Dallas Hoops Journal, and also with us at the Next. Let's get right into it. Grant, big trade yesterday. I woke up to this trade news. Where were you when you heard it, and just kind of what were your instant reactions to this big deal going down between Minnesota and Dallas?
Well, definitely a couple things. One, I'm glad I was already on my computer when it happened. Second, I'm starting to think trades aren't allowed to happen unless the Dallas Wings are involved. I believe this is the third trade they've been a part of, and there's only been 3 this season. So definitely an interesting year for them with a roster move approach as they rebuild around Paige Beckers. So definitely was an interesting trade. I can't say it was surprising. I think it was trending towards DiJonai landing somewhere. It was just a matter of where, based off how the season has gone.
Right. Maybe it has been written into the WNBA bylaws that a trade can't go down unless the Dallas Wings are involved. Trader Kurt certainly at work down there in Big D. I agree. It wasn't too surprising. It felt, I guess, jarring because any trade that involves, a player with the caliber of DiJonai and a former number 2 pick in Diamond Miller, is this kind of going to it's going to wake you up, or you were already awake? Good for you. I was sleeping in on a Sunday. And it's just kind of like, whoa. And it does make a lot of sense, though. I think the writing had been on the wall for DiJonai Carrington for a bit. And then when the Lynx beat the Aces by 53 points on Sunday and Diamond Miller was a DNP, I think the writing was kind of on the wall. But it still was a little bit, you had to kind of, it took me aback a little bit. Just once you kind of saw what the total return was, and that it also included, the contract to Karlie Samuelson, a second-round pick in 2027, and that the Wings were releasing Teaira McCowan. Just kind of, I hate using trade grades or whatever, but just kind of what were your overarching thoughts once you saw everything on paper, what was going out and what was coming in?
Yeah, I think for the most part, overall, just unpacking the trade, I think it's been very challenging for Teaira McCowan and DiJonai to fit with Dallas. And I think for a lot of this season, they've been evaluating their fits and then moving on from players that don't prove to be a fit, like Nalissa Smith, moving her to Las Vegas earlier in the season as well. And so I think that's a positive grade for me overall to, basically admit certain players, maybe this isn't working out and we can try something else. I do think they believe a lot in Diamond Miller. I think if you're getting a first for Nalissa Smith and not a first for DiJonai Carrington, the player that you're getting back that's healthy and available this season, you have to have a lot of confidence in. And, Chris Koklanis at Wings practice on Sunday, I was talking to him about, maybe what the impression is of her skill set, what she can bring to the team. And it seems like they have some pretty big plans, for Diamond, and also Maddie Segrest, who's coming back from a 18-game knee injury absence as well. They want to play lineups with bigger wings, and they like the abilities that both of them have to put the ball on the floor, be complementary, talents to their backcourt players, like Paige and Enrique. So I think I have a very favorable view of this trade. I think I'd probably give it a, probably like a B plus, mostly because I feel like getting a first for, to that earlier point for an Alyssa, but not getting one for, DiJonai is not ideal, but I think we'll probably be able to reflect on how this looks based off how Diamond Miller makes an impact going forward.
Yeah, it definitely felt right away like, oh, this is good for both teams. A lot of times I think we're doing that to kind of, try and sell ourselves on something, but it is with where the Wings record is right now, and just like it clearly, we'll get more into this later on. It clearly wasn't a perfect fit with DiJonai Carrington in Dallas. And even the Wings have been playing better. So I don't necessarily think like, oh, yeah, just go full on trade everyone for picks kind of thing. But you get someone in Diamond who has shown more than just a couple flashes, especially during her rookie season. And thinking about what this offseason is going to look like whenever we eventually get there, having a player in Diamond who's under team control for next season, I think relieve some anxiety when you start to think about, oh, next year we have no players under contract and everyone's going to be trying to sign everyone and we're going to have to go like full recruiting. You can kind of slow play with Diamond a little bit and just, knowing that she'll be under contract next year, and just, try to bring her along, and you don't need to see her put it all together immediately for this to work. And she's great in transition. I'm really excited to see that lineup with her and Maddie and playing with Paige. Like, I think that has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think there's a good combination of players that stay active without the ball, that can get to the rim, do dirty work as well, and I think that's what you need next to your your star guards, and having Paige as a talented passer, not just a scorer as well too. I think they'll be able to build some good chemistry together and have some good options in the half court too, because especially with some of their center options too, like Lee Yuru, she can stretch the floor, space out, still provide that 6'7", size to anchor on both ends. Louisa Geisel-Suter, she's been pretty solid as well too, playing small ball 5 as well. So you got some versatility for what you could put out there, and I think their skill sets, Diamond and Maddie, I think they'll work well with either of those combinations.
For sure. And yeah, we got to think about what this means for Minnesota's bench unit, as we're adding a reigning first team all WNBA all defensive player and the most improved player. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes, more dissecting DiJonai Carrington's fit with the Minnesota Lynx, as well as Diamond Miller's fit with the Dallas Wings, and what Chris Koklanis can do with his new young piece right here in just a moment. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing money, you're also building wealth. I love Monarch Money. I've been so bad at keeping track of things over the years. It helps you tracking things like subscriptions and free trials turning into not free trials, and snipping that stuff right away, and so it doesn't build up and you're just spending money on nothing over time. It is a lifesaver. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. All right, Grant. We mentioned that this wasn't super surprising for either of us, that we kind of could tell that DiJonai Carrington's time in Dallas was numbered. Diamond Miller just too up and down to be, trusted as a true contributor on a team with designs of winning a title this year. Let's start with DiJonai first. What kind of went wrong in Dallas? Because, of course, this trade will be judged in the future is if the Lynx get 2024 DiJonai Carrington or 2025 DiJonai Carrington, something in between. Just kind of what was it with this fit that didn't end up working out as both sides had hoped?
Yeah, for the most part, if you look at the overall results, she had a double figure negative net rating, and I know there's a lot of context that goes into that.
Right.
But her and Nalissa Smith were kind of in that same territory for the on-off numbers being really rough. And from a context standpoint, offensively, her inability to knock down catch and shoot jump shots and be a comfortable spacer, I think, was a big issue in the offense. And so it started to become a situation where she wasn't really taking threes. Like, it was more like overdriving into a crowd. And throughout the season, I felt like there were kind of subtle hints from Chris Koklanis in the the press conferences mentioning that, like, we need to make the spray out pass instead of finishing in a crowd. And I think that was significantly geared towards DiJonai needs to make the spray out pass and not finish in a crowd. Like, very inefficient in the paint for the for those reasons, not finding that right balance between keeping the defense honest with the spray out and taking favorable finishes. And as a result, I think there were times where you're missing at the rim, you're falling to the floor, and the other team is pushing on the break, and that's a disadvantage. And they want to get that flow going where you're redriving and creating advantages and sustaining the advantage. When you have a player that's going into two defenders in the paint and just throwing it up there, that's not sustaining an advantage, and that's becoming a liability on the other end because you're now having to get back in transition for an unfavorable situation. And then I think on the other end of the floor as well, there were times where there was pretty noticeable disagreements, like schematically, between her and the coaching staff. She's someone, I think, that really wants to not switch, fight over screens, and kind of set the tone in that regard, especially with ball pressure, all that good stuff. But there were times where the coaching staff wanted her to switch and just basically execute the scheme. And I think there were breakdowns at times. Not saying that's a constant problem, but just like at times you could see where it's like they're not on the same page. And I could see where this is not necessarily, working out, whether it's at practice even or, during a game. I noticed at least 5 instances of that happening during the season. So I think it was something where she came into this team with really high expectations, and rightfully so. They put her on all the advertisements as like the third player, next to Paige and Enrique, and all the talk was, so now she's coming off a most improved player season. How can she level up even more and achieve even more? So I think where, for her own career expectations, it's not like trying to necessarily say, like there's selfish basketball being played when you're trying to finish in a crowd to an extent, because I think when you have limited opportunities to score and you did have those expectations for yourself, well, you got to make something happen with the ball in those opportunities that you get it. So I think it's finding that right balance of, like being on a great team like Minnesota, I think will benefit her, kind of like how it was in Connecticut, where she's more of a connector as opposed to someone that you're looking to create the advantages and set the tone. Like, she's got some unique elements of her skill set. Like, she can get post positioning, make herself available, and attack mismatches. When her three is falling, I think it's largely been when she's had a lot of time to, get into her shot and play off of somebody who's creating significant advantages. And maybe that happens with Nafisa Collier getting double teamed, or, maybe she could play off of things like that, where she's able to be a cutter and make an impact, in gaps of the defense as well, too. I just think in Dallas, there wasn't enough opportunity where there was advantage creation for her to play within the flow. And then when her skill set was basically in positions to be the advantage creator, I just didn't feel like there was efficient consistency from her in that regard. So I think there was a lot that could have been better, overall from the player and the team standpoint, on both ends, but definitely see where, disconnects happened, and now, why ultimately a trade was the outcome.
For sure. And I think, mentioned her being on all the advertisements with Paige and Enrique. And that's it's a good looking trio, especially on paper with what Carrington did last year. I gotta imagine Paige missing significant time early in the season didn't help for finding that identity early, getting people in the right place, and kind of the only detractors of the trade right now that I'm seeing, on social media is like, will DiJonai Carrington buy into like what the Minnesota Lynx do? Hard coaching from Cheryl Reeve, and honestly, she did that stuff in Connecticut, so I don't think that's much of a concern. She can come in, she can spell K-Mac, she can spell Carlton. Adds a lot on the perimeter where the Lynx have been great, but not a ton of depth. And getting, any of the minutes that were available at a diamond plus a little bit more so that Reeve can rest the starters, as we've got the longest season ever in W history, and you want to win the finals. It's going to be best of 7 this year. You're playing more games than ever before, so I think it was an essential move from that spot, and I don't think it's crazy to imagine we see 2024 Carrington as opposed to what we've been seeing this year. She played through a rib injury early in the season too, right?
Yeah, in Connecticut, I think on like June 20th, she injured her rib and basically missed 32 days from that point on.
Right. So hope she's back to normal and fitting in soon. On the other side, Diamond Miller, who was very promising her rookie year despite some efficiency issues, then just injury after injury after injury. I wrote about this a bit for the next. Anytime Diamond was able to get some momentum going, it felt like there was an injury that would just sap that momentum and make her kind of start at square one again. And then when you have that and you're also trying to get into a rotation of a team that's competing for championships, it's much harder to get in that top 8. So the first reaction to this is like, good for Diamond to get a bunch of minutes on a team that doesn't have the pressure of needing to win this year. Beyond that, why do you think this is a great fit for the Dallas Wings, Grant?
Yeah, I think they've needed more like perimeter size and ability to attack off the dribble with what they've got. They've played out of necessity. I think they played quite a few 3-guard looks. Like JJ Quinterly started at point guard, in her rookie season next to Paige and Enrique. And I think just, that's been solid. I think, some matchups that can be, a little challenging at times, but having the option to go bigger when you want to go bigger, I think is a luxury they really haven't had. And even when injuries have piled up too, like they had some situations where like they were playing multiple centers. Like there was a time where Louisa was playing the 3 because of how many just injuries they had. So just having different skill sets where, you're not going to have to get out of like a, like an identity that, a normal basketball team would have. Like 3 centers is crazy, even if there's versatility with some of them where they can shoot the ball, and have some foot speed. That's still rough. And then on the flip side, not having to rely on, 3-guard lineups when you don't necessarily want to. There's just a lot more options in terms of matchups. And I think, that's just a big part of the problems that were created when Maddie was out as well, where you didn't have that option to play at the 3 who can slide over to the 4. But now they're getting her back along with Diamond. And I think that just presents a lot of intriguing combination options.
Yeah, not even the Minnesota Timberwolves are putting 3 centers out there at the same time. That's kind of shows what the challenges have been with just lineup availability in Dallas. She also joins them at a time where, I will ask you in the third segment about expectations for the rest of the week as we got the trade deadline on Thursday. But it feels like and I know the Wings have dropped their last 2 games, but post All-Star break, the quality has seen a shift, and maybe even before the All-Star break, it was going that way. How have you sort of seen this team grow in the past, few weeks, as opposed to the difficult start where there was this kind of stacking losses and, having to play without Paige and navigating those tough waters? Like what has been like sort of the optimism level of the way this group has been playing of late?
Yeah, I think at the start of the season when they we're 1-11. Well, first of all, playing the Minnesota Lynx 3 times that early does not help
No.
at all, to say the least. But since then, I think just getting more of their personnel back and just adding and filling gaps has created some real optimism, because they were without, like we were talking about, 3 centers, like at times, like more recently. Well, they had like none at one point, where they had multiple players departing for Eurobasket. Before that, Louisa had to slide over to the 5, and that was like their only 5 for a little bit, because Tiara McCowan left for Eurobasket before her, and they didn't acquire Lee Yuru yet. They basically, the day Louisa was set in Las Vegas to leave the team right out after a game, it seemed like they had a trade lined up to get a center. And from that point on, they had some optimism there, where they had like I think they went 5-2 in a 7-game stretch, where Lee looked fantastic. And they just haven't had that full team where you're not overloading somebody's minutes. Like, Lee went from not playing at all in Seattle for the most part to like heavy minutes, and then having to adjust her body mid-season to really shouldering like being the only center for a little bit. And then a lot of players have been playing greater workloads than maybe they're accustomed to. And so I think that 5-2 stretch was the most optimistic, where you could kind of see the vision of what they're looking to accomplish. And then, more injuries have, really limited them from seeing that full picture. Like, I don't think Lee has played with Maddie Segrist, for example. Like, if so, it wasn't meaningful enough for me to even remember. So like, just a lot of like incomplete stretches, where now, after this trade, and players coming back, aside from Ty Harris being out for the season, they're going to have that ability to put a full group together.
And if the transactions this season have given us any indication, they're probably not done making moves yet. We'll talk more about what the Wings and also the Lynx may be doing as the deadline looms on Thursday in just a moment. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. It brings the bold grape, ginger, and lime flavor of your favorite golf drink, minus the alcohol, into a quick, energizing shot. Whether you're sinking birdies or just making memories with friends, this one's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Let's be honest, some days on the course or off it, you just need that extra boost to stay sharp and energized. If I ever golf, I for sure do. I need that extra energy to chase my ball into the woods with all the shanks, slices, and hooks in my swing. And 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives me the energy to chase those all down and still have a fun round out with my friends. Golf's all about good times with good people and good flavors, of course. The grape, ginger, lime flavor gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without chasing down the bev cart. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONGOLF to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Whether you're meeting up with friends or trying to turn 18 holes into 36, get the energizing boost you need to power through. Order transfusion flavored 5-Hour Energy shots today. All right, Grant, we've got a few days left of the trade deadline. Moves will be in full effect. I have one question that I don't know if it's on Lynx fans' minds or not, but from a Lynx perspective here, the Lynx do have a roster spot open, and conventional wisdom would say they might need a big. And Tiara McCowan just hit the markets. So I'm wondering, kind of adjacent to this trade, McCowan to Minnesota, could that be a fit? What do you think of McCowan's prospects for the rest of this season?
Yeah, I think she's someone that when she's got minutes, she's someone that can really like make the most of finishing opportunities where you're like, wow, she scored like 3 times in a row. But I think at times for her, I think the expectation, kind of like along the same lines of the DiJonai conversation we were having, I think the expectations were a little higher for her situation in Dallas.
Mhm.
Like I think she didn't want to be like put in a box skill set wise. I don't think she was all that happy. I mean, that's not a shot or anything, but I don't think she was all that
Right.
happy about coming off the bench because
Sure.
considering her importance, in prior seasons to the team and all that stuff, it seemed like even without other centers, she was at camp. They didn't really give her that like you're going to be our day one center, and then we'll let the new players take over if this isn't working. Like we'll go small with Melissa Smith at the 5. It was more
Mhm.
like we're just straight up not starting you, and I don't think that really. I don't want to say she was like a problem by any means, but I don't think that was like necessarily received greatly, and I think
Sure.
that like it just wasn't a great situation for her this season with the Wings, and I would be curious to see like clean slate. All right, I'm joining a team midseason. I know I'm coming off the bench. I know we can win at a high level. I'll just go out there and be an efficient, offensive player and just play hard defensively. And I think there were times where playing hard was an issue as well, where that effort was up and down, and she's not the most mobile big by any means at 6'7". Like she's definitely one of those like power players. So if that's something that you're looking for, that's not really her skill set. But if you want that more traditional center that you could dump the ball to a little bit, and she could set like rock solid screens and just
Mhm.
be physical, wearing down the other team throughout a stretch, that's definitely a player that I would look at if I was Minnesota.
Yeah. I think any move the Lynx make from now on will be kind of on the margins. But after missing out on Emma Meesman, it's like, okay, who else is a free agent? And it's not a ton of people. So we'll see what the market for McCowan is if she does clear waivers today. Um, on the Wings heavy episode here, but there's this way more potential for what the Wings might do closer to the deadline than the Lynx now that they've acquired DiJonai Carrington. Is there a market for Arike Ogunbowale? Do you think that Kurt and company is interested in moving her at this time, or has the level of play continued to a point where you want Paige of all people to continue to grow and be happy and play meaningful basketball? Just where is your head at right now as we head towards Thursday?
Yeah, I think psychologically for this team, they're trying to like win reasonably, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. Like they're not trying to tear it down to the studs and just get all these assets. I don't think, at least. I
Mhm.
think the moves that they have made have kind of been along the lines of like, all right, this wasn't a fit. Maybe there's some level of addition by subtraction. Get like a better, skill set for us, fill a need, but not burn too many assets to do it. And if we can get an asset along the way, even better. Like Melissa Smith, like for example, just wasn't a fit. Get a first round pick from Vegas in 2027. That's
Mhm.
just a move that you got to make. But it's not necessarily like we're tanking aggressively or anything like that. So
Sure.
I don't think they necessarily are going to look to like just move Arike by any means, just to move her. But like, I do think this post All-Star break stretch for her has largely been, much improved from the way she started the season. And I think, with that being, kind of in mind, I think they probably are going to want to see what they can get overall from that backcourt for the rest of the season. Maybe evaluate how the rest, like the margins, look around them, because they have a lot of respect for Arike, like in their organization. A Greg Bibb, someone big member of the ownership and the front office. He really appreciates the impact that Arike has brought to the franchise, like just throughout her whole career. And I think it would have to be something along the lines of like, does Arike choose, I don't want to be here, as
Right.
opposed to like the Wings, we don't want Arike anymore. And I don't get that sense really from Arike. So like it's been a tough season last couple of seasons, of course. But I think having a talent like Paige coming in that gives that kind of long term, like hope of like we're building something here, and they'll add surely another top 3 pick, I would imagine, in this upcoming draft. So I think there's plenty to look forward to from her perspective. So I think that's just kind of where it stands overall. And I think it would be tough, like all things considered too. I believe her contract's over after the season too. So that's also another element where I'm sure they're going to have conversations in the near future to kind of sort through and unpack all the stuff that I kind of just talked about. But yeah, that's kind of where it stands. I feel right now.
Yeah. Well, and Cheryl mentioned this last week too, when we were asking her about the trade deadline, that with everyone essentially being on an expiring deal, it makes it hard to move someone on a team that's not contending to a contender. Like if you're Seattle or Atlanta, you got to ask yourself the question, does this player actually put us in like the thick of the title race and worth giving up X, Y, and Z for it? So finding a deal, I think, is tougher this year just with the looming CBA. But and yeah, someone like Arike too, who's been such an important part of everything they've done in Dallas. You want to do right by her and don't just want to, sell her for, 70 cents on the dollar, just to get assets. So especially if you've seen improved play across the board, that stuff matters more so than tanking. That is our show for today, recapping the big trade between Minnesota and Dallas. Grant, thank you again so much for taking the time to join me. You can be found across socials at Grant Afseth, AFSETH, Dallas Hoops Journal, The Next. Anything else to send the folks your way?
Yeah, I think all of that. And then on YouTube, I post all the Wings post game and practice pressers as well too. So if you ever want to watch those, those are on there along with random practice videos and, some podcasts when I get around to doing them and don't procrastinate. Yeah. But definitely a lot of articles on Dallas Hoops Journal in The Next.
For sure. And we'll see you up here again in Minneapolis in September, late August, September, I think. At least one more time, I'm pretty sure, but maybe the schedule is telling me lies in my head. Thank you again, Grant. Go follow Grant and consume his work everywhere we just mentioned. And thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. For your second listen, find the Locked On NBA podcast, where there is no offseason. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.